My boyfriend talks to someone who isn't there. One day something spoke back. When I first noticed that my boyfriend was talking to himself, I didn't think much of it. Even I do it sometimes. I think most people do. He would do it so quietly I can't even say for how long it had been going on. Maybe he had always done it. His lips moved rapidly, and his voice was barely a whisper. I delivered propane to remote areas. I thought he might be quietly humming. Then I met the Korhonens. He would look down while doing it, while scrolling his phone. I used to have a small business delivering propane gas to customers. Maybe it was a compulsion, away from civilization, like a tick or even Tourette's. These were a mix of people with the kindest way to bring it up without it seeming like I was what you might call exiles from the daily grind. It all came to a head on Saturday. My deliveries were split. I was in the living room mindlessly scrolling on my phone while David was in the kitchen making us some food. The Korhonens were the latter. Suddenly he ran into the room and stopped. When they called me up one July day, at my feet with a wild look in his eye. We set a delivery date a week into August, his voice was raised a bit over the phone, like he was disciplining an unruly child. They struck me as a normal couple. I dropped my phone on my face in their 50s because I wasn't expecting him to bark a command at me like that. Their only real instruction was that if I couldn't complete the delivery by sundown, I snapped back. I should return in the morning. I had no idea why he was reprimanding me for being on my phone. I would have easily made it to their place, but his eyes weren't directed at me. He was looking directly behind me, double back over my shoulder. Repairs. I glanced back. By the time the truck was in working order, it was late in the afternoon. I kept looking between my boyfriend and the empty space behind me trying to make sense of what was happening. But nobody picked up. He blinked rapidly and looked down at me. The poor cell reception around here and kept driving. I'm sorry, feeling guilty that any potential delay would be my fault because of the truck. I thought I saw something behind you. The Korhonens lived quite deep in the bush, still shaking his head. In an area I wasn't used to delivering to, and the way was longer than it had looked on the map. When I arrived at their property gate, it was already running in here like that, and further darkness seemed to be drifting in on the unseasonably cold breeze. He kept shaking his head and backed away into the kitchen. I tried their phone again. I went back to scrolling on my phone, called out into the wild. No response. But I kept shooting glances at David. I had the code to the gate and could see a building down the gravel driveway. So I opened it. For the rest of the morning, his whole mood seemed off. Nothing caught my eye except for a line of small white stones with his hands, the homestead, something he only does across the driveway. But my truck had no issue getting over it. I suggested getting out of the apartment like it was in the midst of repairs. Again, David not unusual, and had a clearly defined oversection, both good, a newer add-on, and an attached. It seemed to calm him down, and I was getting cabin fever the truck, stuck inside, got out and knocked on the front door. Walking back to the apartment, responded. We were holding hands. The sun was sinking below the trees by now. But the propane tanks were easily reached, and I decided to fill them despite the Korhonen's instructions because I didn't see a shadow or something, only to come back tomorrow. I asked, trying to keep everything light. It was while backing my truck towards the tanks. He looked at me cautiously, as if he was weighing what he was about to say. It was followed promptly by another, and a third, fourth, fifth, sixth. I think I saw a shadow or something. Then they ended. Or maybe I stopped the truck and identified the source of the banging did not reach inside the house. I decided to drop his front door again. I honestly thought he was embarrassed. Nobody answered. He had gotten scared over nothing and was worried about my reaction. It apparently hadn't been locked. That night I woke up to the sound of David talking. I stepped inside. He was whispering, there was a sterility and a stillness that woken me up. The eerie coziness of a morning. I lay there listening. Hours. I had no intention of getting up or saying anything to him. The neatness was still half awake. Hello. Once he stopped, I said to no one in particular. I would go back to sleep. Perhaps it was an animal during the day. I could never make out what he was saying. That seemed the most reasonable explanation, even though as I scanned the Korhonen's bookshelf. John Muir, I'm not going to do that to her. Pentilincola, and you're not allowed to touch her either. Followed by silence. You promised followed me. By a voice weakly saying, "You promised me that this time would be different." The voice chilled. His whispers were harsh and insistent. I asked, "Who's there?" I almost said something. Adi Korhonen. The voice said. At this point, I thought he might not even be awake. Their son. Maybe he was talking in his sleep. They told me they didn't have children. That's when I heard a voice answer. Where are you? It was in the shed and separate. Help me. My heart started pounding even as I tried to rationalize what I was hearing. But I had bolt cutters this new in voice, my truck, lower and softer than David's. I told the boy to wait while I ran I had heard before. Heart, I couldn't make out the words, just the tone of it as it spoke. Cut through the padlock. I couldn't tell myself if it was male or female. Dirty, emaciated, but it sounded angry, hot-bellied, with shadows under his eyes, and reached his hair cut sickly short and skin that looked as pale as clouds. Just lay there, still pretending to be asleep. He pleaded with me to take him out of there. You're wrong. Save him. She's still sleeping. To follow me. But he said he was too weak to walk, so I picked him up and began carrying him to my truck. The voice answered back. All the while my mind was processing I still couldn't make out the words, action, but it sounded both I would have called the police, but I didn't have cell reception. Whatever. When we were a few dozen steps from the truck, I'm exhausted and suddenly cried out. You can talk to me tomorrow when I wake up. He begged me to save his sister, and he lay back down beside me by the gate. All was silent in the bedroom. Minutes passed and David's breathing slowed.
Let me show you.
And he started to lightly
So
snore.
instead of putting him in the truck,
he was asleep.
I turned and carried him up the
But I
gravel
couldn't
driveway
join him.
towards the gate.
I
His
felt my
tears
pounding
on my
heart
back.
just now settling down
But
into
the moment
a steady
we
rhythm.
crossed the boundary of white stones,
I wanted to push
he
myself
pushed away
off
from
the
me,
bed and
dropped to
inspect
the
the
ground,
bedroom. And in some combination
but I
of the
didn't.
movements of a child and a
I
wild
just lay
dog
there
ran
too
into
afraid
the
to get
woods.
up and see what else
I
might
yelled
be in
after
the
him
room
to
with
wait,
us.
gazing into the depths,
Eventually, I
defended
did
by the
fall
great
asleep,
trees, though
but
it was
saw
more like
nothing but
passing
darkness
out than actual sleep.
And when I looked up, I realized
when my
that
eyes
night
opened,
had fallen.
I saw the morning light
After
streaming
grabbing a
into the
flashlight
bedroom
from the
glove
window,
compartment of my truck.
I pushed
I
myself
pressed
up
ahead
into
into
the
a sitting
woods where I
position
thought the
and
boy
looked
had
around
gone,
the room,
but I couldn't find him.
There was nothing strange
I'm
in
not
the room
sure
with
for
me.
how long I tried,
Just
or
a
when I
pile
gave
of
up,
dirty laundry,
but it was
that
while
was
making
begging
my
to be
way
done.
back to the Corhonen homestead
I rubbed
that
my
I came
eyes,
across a clearing,
feeling a headache
and
starting
in the
behind
middle
them.
of it, there he was.
In the light of day,
It was
I
a
could
moonless
convince
night.
myself that I had just dreamed
Dark.
everything or hallucinated.
But for some reason I could see
just
him
then
unnaturally
David
well,
popped his head
as if
into
he
the room
himself
and
were
gave me
emitting
a
light.
huge smile.
Not a white light, but
You
one as the
slept in
darkness
super late,
itself,
black and
Are
shining.
you just that tired?
penetrating the night world with its
He
eye?
asked, walking into the room
A rumbling
and sitting
began
down somewhere
next to me.
far away.
He had a cup of coffee
And a
in his
wind.
hand and passed it to me.
And as the rumbling grew,
I took
the
it
wind
gently and
intensified,
sipped.
and Adi Korhonen shone
The warmth
ever
from
and
the
ever
liquid
more
was
intensely,
lifting my spirits.
his small head becoming a
I
kind of
didn't sleep well
anti-beacon,
last late,
and in the skies,
I
and
think I was
between
having a
trees,
nightmare.
over me
I
began to
explained,
pass,
sipping
first
at the
only
coffee.
a few, then more,
David furrowed
and
his
soon a
brow
multitude
and rubbed my back.
of moths and all variations of the
thing.
darkest colors imaginable.
You never have
Some as
nightmares.
small as
Do you want to
fingernails,
tell me what it was
others
about?
the size of
He
birds,
asked, still rubbing
and I
my
dropped
back.
to my knees. Then
I
fell
shrugged
onto my
and kept
chest,
sipping my
and
coffee,
the moths converged,
wondering if I should
they
confront
converged
him
on
about
Adi
last
Korhonen,
night
were
on
playing
his
off as some kind of waking nightmare.
blindingly dark and shining head.
No,
covering
it's fading
it,
now,
soaking up his infinitely
I
black
can't even
light.
remember
And
what
while
it was
they
about.
did so,
I
and
stood
while
up
I
as
lay
I
at the
spoke.
edge of the clearing, the most terrible,
I was getting hungry,
vile, and violent
I hoped that
scenes
David
played
had
in my
saved me
mind.
some breakfast.
Thefts and betrayals,
He
murders
hadn't,
and
but
abuses
that's
and
just
tortures,
because he hadn't
brief
made
but
anything
vivid
yet.
glimpses of such horror
He had
deeds.
been waiting for me to wake up.
Most of the
before he
people
started
involved I
making
did not
something.
know, but some
I
did.
volunteered to
Some
make
of
us
them I
some
knew.
food. Then they
Mostly
scattered.
because I was craving waffles.
It was as
and
if
David
Adi
sucks at
Korhonen
making
had
them.
grown and grown and
I started
exploded
searching
into a
through
rain
the
of
cabinets
moths,
and fridge
which
for what I
disappeared
needed.
into the depths of the forest.
As I was
in all
busying
directions,
myself with breakfast,
leaving me in
I
utter
glanced
and
up
lonely
and saw
silence
David
on my
staring
chest on the
fixedly
cold,
at the
damp
corner
of the
earth.
living room. I eventually
His
got
lips were
back to
moving
the
rapidly,
homestead,
and into
and
my
I knew
truck.
that he was talking to himself
I
again.
drove away.
I looked
The
away.
minute I regained cell
It
reception,
was too early for
I
this.
called the police to report what had
I was
happened.
hungry, and I needed
They
some more
investigated,
coffee in
but
me
found
before
no
I
one
could
in
deal
prison
with
there.
any kind of
No
crazy
signs
this
of wrongdoing,
morning.
and no evidence
As
the
soon as I
Korhonens
poured
had
out the
ever had a
flour
child
and milk,
David
David
appeared
appeared
beside
or
me,
otherwise,
causing me to jump a little.
But in the weeks, months,
I
and
snapped
years
at him
following the
because
day
he
on
scared
which
me.
I met Adi Korhonen,
Jesus, David,
some of the evil
you
things
really
I
gotta
saw,
stop
I
sneaking
can
up on me
confirm
like
that they've
that.
come true.
I hissed.
I do not
I
doubt
was already
that everything I
irritated
saw
from
has
lack of
or will
sleep,
soon come
and
to
now
pass.
he had to startle me too.
All that suffering.
I'm sorry,
I
he
no
whispered,
longer deliver
his eyes
propane.
darting from me and back to the
I
living
still
room.
live in the area,
But I thought we could
to
go
the
out
best
to
of my
brunch
knowledge.
instead.
The Korhonens are
I
no
shook
longer
my head.
resident on their property.
I already poured out the
But I
milk
went
and
by
flour
once,
a
I
few
don't want
months
it to go
ago,
to waste,
and the place was still kept
he licked
and
his
clean,
lips before
and the
speaking
repairs
again.
were in a more advanced state
Please?
than before.
It'll
Just
be my
before
treat.
I left, I swear to you,
I
I
just
heard a
can't be
banging.
in the apartment right now. He looked upset as he spoke to me. I set aside the poor half-finished
I'm going to
waffle
jail
mix
because
inside.
my boss eats people.
Okay,
What
let's
can
go
I
out
say?
and get some brunch.
I'm the employee
I
of
could
a
use a
horrifying
cappuccino
shape-shifting
and a
monster,
mimosa
but
anyway.
it's just the way
I
it is,
agreed.
and there's nothing we can do
David
about it.
kept hovering over me as
And it
I
was
got
all
dressed
working
as
fine
quickly
until
as I
Sharon
could.
was eaten.
I didn't have time
Sharon
to
was
brush
too
my
obvious,
teeth,
and
and
now
he
the
rushed
whole
me out the
cover-up
door.
will be blown.
He practically
You'll
shoved
hear it
me
in the
out into
news,
the
so
hallway.
I might as well tell you now.
Usually, I'm all for
we
a
knew
brunch
Dwayne
date,
was a
but he was
monster,
acting so
like a
erratic,
real one.
and I was bouncing
We
between
think he
being
might have
irritated
come from
and
space,
concerned. But it doesn't really matter
As we
now.
sat and ate our breakfast,
He would eat
I
customers.
decided I
that
needed to
much
bring
is
everything
true.
up.
For the most
Something
part,
was worrying
only
him,
old
and the more I
elderly
thought
ones
about
that
the
came
last
along,
night
the
and
more
night.
this pit of worry was
But
forming
those
in my
weren't the
stomach.
ones we were worried about.
I think I just wanted
was
him
the
to tell me
high-risk
that
customers,
everything was all right.
once every 4 months or
that
so,
I had dreamed everything.
that we had to be be
and
vigilant
this was
about.
something normal. I was
It
blowing
always
out of
happened
proportion.
around his own system of
Last
holidays.
night, I woke for a little while.
What were his holidays?
I thought I heard you talking to
Well, let
someone.
me explain.
I tried
June
to say
7th,
it as nonchalantly
Stomp
as
Day.
I could.
Stomp Day
David
was
coughed
Stomp
on
Day.
his eggs Benedict and
You
gave
arrived
me a
at 8
horrified
a.m. sharp
expression.
and were paid a lot of money
What are you
to
talking
stay for
about?
the next 14 hours.
I wasn't
instead
talking
of
to
8.
anyone last night.
At about
You
a dozen
looked at me
different
wide-eyed.
times throughout the day,
He was a
you'd
terrible
stomp the
liar.
ground as hard as you could.
Babe, it's okay.
The idea was
If
to
you were
hide it.
dreaming, or if you have some
Like,
kind of tick
sorry,
or
I was
Tourette's,
carrying
it's
this
okay.
big load of plywood.
I'm not here
and
judging
so I
you.
accidentally stomped as I
I'm
almost
just telling
lost
you that I've
balance.
noticed.
Or you could
And
just
I think
stomp
I was
on a
dreaming
pallet
through part of
jack
it
to
anyway,
prevent swerving.
because I thought I heard something
You'd be
answering you
surprised
back.
at how many discreet ways you
I
can
reached
stomp
out trying
right
to
by
hold
a
his
person's
hand,
face
but he
and
snatched
get
it
away
away.
with it. You
The
had a
purpose
nightmare
of the
last
stomping
night.
was to make customers
I
flinch,
wasn't talking
which
last
had something
night.
to do with building up
I
a
was
certain
asleep
level
the
of
whole
unease
time.
in the store. He was sweating as he spoke. At the end of the day, and his eyes were darting around like he was looking for someone. 3 months' pay. I sighed and went back to my breakfast. I'll get to that later. David sat his fork down. The hardest part was looking you were competing with everyone else. His breakfast, and you were only allotted 7 tries at specific timestamps in the day, or maybe talking about this in a public setting was too much for him. Everyone's timestamps were different. After we paid the bill, we were walking home when David grabbed my arm. 10:37, 11:40. His eyes had a glassy and panic. 21:33. I felt a stab of panic and placed my hand on his chest. It was easiest just to set alarms on your heart pounding. I always brought a spare battery for my dying iPhone 10. You look like you're getting sick. Anyway, if you could get someone really startled, Dwayne would show up and be very apologetic and tell the customer they can get a free DeWalt power drill from the back for today. He would take them into the loading bay for a while, and into that room none of us were allowed in. You'll see it on the news. But, and then, well, if you come back with me, I can take care of you. I pleaded. But trust me, he shook his head. No, it's why we were able to get away with it just need to have some time to myself. Dwayne had some intuitive way of choosing single, leaving me staring after him on the sidewalk. Usually homeowners. Both our apartments were in walking distance. So when they disappeared, it took a while for friends and family to catch on, and the police always at my place. So often we practically lived together. October 14th, it felt unnatural going back home alone. Before you go asking him throughout the day, but I got no answer. We have no fucking clue. I tried calling, I should explain that Dwayne definitely does not speak English. Any irritation I felt for him was gone and replaced with pure I'd love concern. To get some linguist or geneticist as the evening to tell me where he could possibly go over to his place to confront him. Apparently, when he finally called me back. Is some priest? David? An angel? Are you okay? Maybe Dwayne's mother? You haven't messaged me back all day. For whatever reason, I was getting worried. Settled on the name St. Quelber. I was getting ready to come over to your place. There wasn't any hard start to this holiday. You could book any kind of 6 or 8 hour shift. Don't come over here. But if you were working on St. Quelber's, you better bring a low bandana or N95 mask. I almost couldn't hear him. Dwayne would basically fumigate the entire store with some chemical I can only describe as minty bleach. You or me? My voice we would put up signs throughout the store that said we were having a clean day. Why? Customers seem to put up with it. You're not threatening to hurt me. Everyone just grabbed a courtesy COVID mask. Or is someone else threatening to hurt me and did their shopping? I was shouting over the phone. But the closer you got to the back of the store for him, I didn't know what to think. The stronger that minty bleach smell got. We need to break up. I should mention it wasn't like a hazy smoke or anything. You need to stay away from me. It was completely translucent. You need to stay safe. More of a mist. He sounded like he was crying. If you were working on this day, and with that the call you had to carry a rag in your back pocket. I stared at my phone. Any stains you spotted on the floor or shelves. I know he did not just break up with me over the phone. The substance in the air basically made any stain come out instantly. Then again, I hated to think what it might have done to my eyes and voicemail. But I never had any adverse reactions. I sent text messages and messages on WhatsApp, but got no reply. Some customer with asthma or a cold or something would only fall asleep after I took a sleeping pill just because I knew I needed the rest. If the customer met Dwayne's criteria, every message I sent to David offer them the employee washroom in the back where they could go clean themselves up. I had gotten the message loud and clear, and I wasn't going to throw myself at someone who wanted to push me away. I'm not pretending. After a few more days had passed, I started gathering up all the things he had left at my apartment. We just never directly killed anyone ourselves. I cried while doing it. Accessories to breaking up was always hard into compliance, but I had thought our relationship was going well. I know it seems dropping like we off only the box enabled his harder than I had expected, which is true. But we were kind of forced to letting him know his stuff was outside. It'll make more sense when I explain the next holiday. I was certain I was blocked. March 24th, but in case he wasn't, I wanted to give him a heads up. If you want to work at Dwayne's outside his door for several sign minutes. A year-long contract. Part of me wanted to knock it was very and see explicit. If he was home. Dwayne always explained to new employees that he's sick of high turnover. If he wanted to talk to me, he would guarantee you a customer service job, fairly well paying, had my number, as long as you committed to a year. Come to think of it, I still needed to get my apartment the lost dates you can give your 2 weeks notice. That night I was laying on my couch half watching a movie while I signed an incredibly sophisticated contract. I was deleting all the pictures of me and David. As you'd imagine, hello there, Amber. This Dieter's a lot of whisper from somewhere which is totally fine. I gasped Dwayne and left off the couch, committed, clutching my phone to my chest. And so he filters out applicants. It sounded like someone who was right beside my ear. For a stable, decent-paying job there was nothing. With little experience. My eyes darted to the TV screen. High school dropouts like maybe I had heard it from there. Anyway, after a year of work, the movie I was watching allowed to quit Amber, but only on graduation day. My heart was pounding as I tried to rationalize 365 days after immediately I thought of David on your graduation. Dwayne invites all the employees into the loading bay. I ended up staying awake most of the night, which is unlike anything you've ever heard, and is genuinely impossible to describe. What I was feeling was irrational, he gives you a white rubber band with a certain number of tally marks, I got up to leave the apartment, corresponds to how many people you have down that year. Where was I going to either move on with your life? It was the middle of the night, part-time and besides a few or commit to another full year with a triple wage increase.
I didn't relish the thought of sitting on an uncomfortable bar stool sipping coffee and waiting until her graduation on March 27th. Staying home seemed like the best option. Once she got her first white rubber band, I even thought about messaging David, but I'll admit to that in court. He wasn't going to answer me anyway. I'm being super upfront about all of this. I stay on that couch till the first rays of light started to peek through the blinds. She was a week away from her graduation when she snapped. I smiled. Apparently, the sunshine calmed my nerves, and I felt myself finally relaxing and drifting off to an exhausted sleep. On the day of her meltdown, as I closed my eyes, I was at the opposite end of the depot when she grabbed a megaphone. I felt a hand gently pressing onto my back. For about $80, claws digging thought the fabric of my shirt. I heard the buzzy click of the megaphone turning on, Amber, and then I heard so much to talk about. Shouts. The voice whispered, "We work for a monster. I walked with the dead men in the desert. People have died here. It started as a weekend trip to Las Vegas, etc." A 3-day weekend was coming up. Of course, some friends wanted to add spice to their lives, but she refused on the bucket list. Very soon, Dwayne showed up. Wiping his mouth to stay home and watch old cartoons I bought from a video store. She tossed the megaphone at him and ran that Friday. And so, maybe I didn't make it clear to them, or maybe they just ignored me. The open-air customer had already bought me a plane ticket and booked a hotel in front of like 20 people. With it being too late to caught her by the hair and shrieked so out of financial obligation, I couldn't let that money go to waste and be a bad, boring friend. He pulled one of those black Rubik's Cubes out from his pocket and basically I had 5 friends with me and everyone was feeling the excitement. Especially one sped away. Sadie was the group extrovert, the leader. We all stared with our jaws dropped. She didn't suggest not knowing what to do, but she sure as hell put herself in charge the moment the others considered the trip. Standing in front of us in the hotel lobby, the reason I think she held a list of places for us to check out. The black cubes were how Dwayne stood by and let her list them off. And yes, everyone casting votes on which places to skip. I do have 2 of them. Which places to start with. They were awarded to me on some very successful stomp days. What we ended up with was a schedule starting with the most fun and physically demanding stuff, gradually leading towards the more exciting, I will be giving them to the police stuff. Honestly, I had already mentally decided to call my hands were tied, rolled around to avoid my hands were tied. I guess I am supposed to work. I will say I don't have a degree Vegas, and don't qualify for anything in finance, clean, STEM, healthcare, don't get me wrong. Whatever. We saw plenty of streets that looked like the physical manifestation of a painful hangover. I could only land a job, but many were straight out of Hollywood. Obviously, I should go to jail. It's loud. It's a theme park that people live more than 18 months. It was almost surreal when we ended up on streets that looked plain and ordinary. Thanks to Dwayne, men in suits, I've been able to afford the crazy high rent and I'm just writing this all out here so you can see my very little about Las Vegas. Before the news media spins a lot of everything out of control, but still, I found it interesting. Please DM me if you know a good lawyer. When we turn down onto a street where the buildings look like modern art, I'm going to medical school with a goal to save at least 254 lives. Slot machines, live shows, 254 because that's how many tally marks I counted on my white rubber band. All of it, but it just wasn't for me. Peace and love, y'all. When we had dinner at what I thought was a nice casino restaurant, a few days ago, until I got a letter in the mail. Servers were in very tight. My name and address were scrawled on the envelope just about mentally checked out. Shaky, capital letters. Hey, I think I'm done. There was no return address. Before the chorus, I brought it into my house with the rest of my mail and opened it. I'm tired. Inside, there was a small piece of paper and everything about the size of a credit card. I have a pill for that in my purse. One hello. It was written with those same shaky right now. Capital letters that adorn the envelope. Try not to stay out. I turned the paper over and found nothing written on the back. I felt older with every word, and the envelope was empty too. I'm 28 this and I was random piece like of paper with one word was all that was there, and said, I had no idea the amount of free relief I felt walking into the empty hotel room was chalking criminal. It up to being one of those handwritten church letters tired to some degree because the bed just left it on my counter with the rest of the junk mail I was too lazy to throw out. Soft Egyptian cotton sheets sat on my couch and watched TV for a while before going to bed. I know that says a lot about me, forgotten at this point, but still, it was pretty good. After a decent night's sleep, I turned the TV on, I clumsily felt around my end table, finally ending up on a new episode of how it's made. Instead, my hand brushed against a piece of paper. I don't know. I didn't remember what I can say for sure is that my brain was locked in, and as I grabbed it, fell beyond the horizon, figuring it to be a random receipt or something. Asterisk. It was not a receipt. I woke up to a call. It was a credit card-sized piece of paper was buzzing with the word hello written on it in shaky, the vibrations doing more to wake me up than the lighthearted jingle I had for a ringtone. I could have sworn I said the name on the counter last night. Yeah, clutching the paper, I groaned. I went to my pile of junk mail. What's up? I found the envelope there, but not the paper. All right, you're really missing out here. Piece of paper. Sadie's voice, but I still had no idea how it got into my room. We were up the road. As I was trying to figure that out, my cat, we were in the club with the big rubbed up against my leg and meowed. You can't miss it. I took a quick glance at his food bowl. Come on, and saw that, as I hung up before I could say the bottom was visible. You underestimate me.
Craig is never this
I muttered.
affectionate unless he was hungry.
I turned over in bed and
All
looked
right,
out the window.
I'll feed you, I said,
the city was alive,
petting Craig's
even
head.
after a full night.
As I poured some food
Lights
in
and
Craig's
sounds,
bowl,
the
I
distant
figured that
thumps
maybe
of music.
Craig knocked the paper down.
There had
and
to
the
be some
AC
stellar
or something
meeting in the
blew
walls
into my
because
room.
I could see that the party was
At the
not
moment,
far away. That made the most sense.
I thought about
so
going.
I went with that explanation.
It was the idea of missing out
Craig
that
chowed
bothered
down,
me a little because
I turned
didn't
the piece
think I
of
was
paper
missing
over
out.
in my hand.
Yet,
It
when
was
so
just
many
a small
people you
piece
call
of paper
friends
with
say
one
that
word
you
on
are,
it. You start to
what
wonder
was the
if
point
you
of
really
it?
know how to live.
And who sent it?
Maybe the happiness you
After
feel from
considering
simple
these
things
questions
isn't
for a
as
moment,
potent as the
I
happiness you
crumpled
get
up the
while being
piece of
drunk
paper
in a
and
club
threw it
with your
out.
friends.
Honestly,
Screw that.
I didn't care
I
that
said.
much, and I had better
I
things
knew that
to
was
do
a
with
dumb
my
way of
time
thinking,
than unravel
but
this
I also
mystery.
didn't feel that tired anymore.
As if on cue,
the
my
least
phone
I could do
reminded
was
me
enjoy
of
the
one of
trip
those
my
better
own way,
things,
and at that
a
moment,
date I had tonight
I just
with
wanted
my
to go
boyfriend,
for a walk.
George. Not in the
We
streets,
hadn't been going out
of
for
course,
too long,
but I did
really
remember
liked
Sadie
him and was
mentioning on our
excited
list
to
of
see him
activities
again.
a walk thing just outside
We were going
the
to have
city.
dinner together at an upscale
I was the
restaurant
only one
tonight,
who was interested,
and I still needed
and
to
she
get
didn't
everything
seem
ready.
too enthusiastic when she
I got
told
my
us
car
about
washed
it either.
and cleaned inside and out.
I got out of
picked
bed
up some
and
flowers,
texted her,
and then
asking
got
for the
myself
address,
ready.
to which she sent me
I
the
met
Google
George at the
business
restaurant.
No
I
official
gave him the
page or
flowers,
anything,
which
just
made
a
him
bare
blush,
bones minimum.
and then we had a very nice,
It lacked that
if
Vegas
expensive,
flair everything
dinner.
had, and for me,
After
that was
dinner,
a plus.
we got into my car and started
Asterisk.
making out.
Just after
Soft,
midday,
quick
I
kisses
arrived
soon
at the
turned
place.
long, passionate,
I paid
and
the taxi
intense.
guy and jumped out into the
George
heat.
started pushing me against the
I always
driver's
had
side
decent
door while
clothing for
kissing
the
me.
outdoors with me.
It was
As
like
he was
my
adjusting
entire wardrobe.
himself, he accidentally
Yet,
put his
the
hand
heat was
into
still
one of
a
my car's
surprise.
cup holders. I guess being
I
in
heard
a
a
cool
slight
car for
crinkling
half
in
an
the
hour
paper.
would make it feel like
What the
stepping into
hell?
an oven. I know I
The trail
cleaned out
started
my
a
car,
small
and I know
collection
for a
of
fact
shacks
there were no
with
random
one larger
wrappers,
building that looked
receipts,
like it was
or
in good
napkins
condition.
in this car. It was painted
George
an ugly
seemed to
yellow,
sense my
with
confusion
small
and
cartoonish
stopped.
paints all around it,
Everything
like
okay?
a cactus character,
He asked between
a
heavy
tumbleweed,
breaths.
with some classics
Yeah,
like the Roadrunner
I said,
and Wall-E.
I just don't know
thrown in
how
for
there's
good
a piece
measure.
of paper in here.
I don't think they were going
I
for a
swear,
cowboy theme.
I cleaned this
but
out
that's what
before
I
we met
felt
up
when I
tonight.
saw the owner, a tall
George
woman,
chuckled.
wearing chaps,
It's
a
fine,
10-gallon hat,
babe,
and a
he
checkered
said,
shirt. Picking it up, she looked like
You
she
probably
had seen
just
some
missed
things.
something.
Just shocking the way the
It
skin
happened.
beneath her eyes seemed to bubble.
It's probably just
Yet,
some
when she
receipt.
saw me, she gave me
George's
the
voice
warmest
trailed
smile.
off as he read it.
You must be Cassandra,
What is it?
right? She
I
greeted,
asked.
marching over with her
You
hand
tell me.
outstretched. He answered, giving me the paper.
Yes, that's me.
Written on the
I
small,
said,
credit
holding mine out.
card-sized paper was a phone
She
number
took and
with the
shook
name
my arm
Dylan
like a
written
wet
in
noodle.
handwriting I was all too
I'm not
familiar
too
with.
late?
I
Not
stared
at
at
all,
it blankly.
she said.
Did this
Some
hello guy
eccentric
break
fellas
into my
are
car
already
just
set
to
up
put
for
this
this
first
here?
group today?
There
There's
was
still
no
time
sign
to
of a
join them
break-in.
before they go. Did George do
Group?
this?
Yes.
Is this some
I
joke?
find it's better to send people
What
in
the hell
groups.
was going on? Less chance of
So,
people getting
he
lost
said,
or
his arms
bunching up on the
crossed.
trail. Who's
Dylan?
better for pictures? You
I.
see? I have no idea.
Right.
I stammered. We also have a route for
Then how
horses
come you have
if you're
his
interested
number?
in Dash. George looked
No,
genuinely upset.
no
horses. Scare the
I don't think
SHA.
he was behind
They scare
this.
me.
Okay,
I will stick with the
I
walking
said,
group, trying to figure out how
Fair
to
enough.
explain this.
I won't press you.
So, I always hated it when people
George gave
said
me a
that.
look that said,
Nothing
"Come on,
made me feel
get
more
to it
pressed.
already."
Still,
All right,
she
so
was
I got
the
this
sweetest
letter in the
lady,
mail from
sweeter
someone
than
I do
honey
not
and
know,
iced tea.
and it had a piece of paper that
I didn't
only
say
said
anything
hello,
more,
and then
and
the
it followed
paper
her
somehow
to the
got
start
into
of
my
the trail.
room.
And then I thought Craig
There was
moved it
clear
somehow
signage with
and threw it
numbers
out,
near
and
the
now the
fences
person
and
behind
gates,
that piece of
indicating
paper
the
somehow
different
put this
trails.
one in my car because it
The
has
trail
the same
she
writing
pointed me to
style.
didn't have
I
a
said in
sign
a
or
rush.
number.
George
The
took
first
a
group
second to
should
take
be
it
waiting
all in.
there.
She pointed down the
That's
trail toward a
certainly an
large rock.
explanation,
He said, they are set to leave in
It's
5
the
minutes.
truth.
I swear.
Do
I
you have
said,
everything you need?
All right, water, hat,
You believe
and
me?
sunscreen. I
George
said.
shrugged.
Good.
It's
an
hot
insane
now,
explanation,
but it will get cool later.
But I'm willing
A
to
little
go
known
with it for
fact
now.
about the desert.
I
Dorothy
breathed
said,
a sigh of
painting
relief,
up a finger as if she
Thank
expected
you,
me to take
I
note.
said. Of
We
course,
both sat silently
I knew
for
that
a
already
moment
before I asked.
I nodded
So,
and started
wanna pick
walking
up
up
where
the
we
trail
left
toward
off?
the rock.
George
shook
she
his
already
head.
started her march back
Not
to the
really
main
in the mood
building.
anymore. Sorry.
I was feeling pretty good.
I should probably
even
get
excited.
home. actually. I love the openness of the desert, and I was hoping that being 20 minutes out of Vegas, I would get to enjoy the natural beauty of it all. I sat in my car staring at the piece of paper. There was a group of people waiting by the rock. I racked my brains, but looking at them was a little trying to figure out if I knew anyone named Dylan. I mean, I don't want to show my ignorance. I think I had a friend in elementary school named Dylan, or just had some kind of cultural thing going on. Maybe I was about to walk with some foreigners from overseas. I doubt he was clever enough to pull off something like this. I don't know. I really didn't want to look into this further, and it was hard to tell if they were all men or not because they were dressed in robes from head to toe. But this, not flowing whatever this is, seems to want a lot more neat and constricted. And they did give me a way to contact them. My first real thought wasn't, what the hell are they wearing? I dialed the number from the paper into my phone. How the hell haven't they melted? It rang a couple of
but one of their
times,
robes were
and
red,
then someone picked
but
up.
the last one was black.
Hello? He stood
I
tall and
said,
straight, the first one to turn in my direction. The voice at the other end sounded artificial.
I was already
like one of
psyching
those
myself up to
text-to-speech
say
programs.
something.
It
Approaching
stressed
a group
each
of
syllable
people
like they
alone
were
was
separate
terrifying.
words.
As
Who
you
is
can
this?
guess, Sadie and her group were the ones who adopted me at work. I was
the
just
voice
happy
repeated.
they did, because I would have
How do
never
you know
gone up
me?
to them.
Hello.
Room for one
and with
more?
that, the call dropped.
I said with a forced smile.
I tried calling again,
I
but
was
got
a little
this
quiet
number
at
is no
first,
longer in
but better a
service
little
message.
too quiet than a little too loud.
Annoyed, I decided to
the
Google
ones
the
in the
number
red robes
and the name
turned
Dylan.
from me and looked at the one in
It
black.
led me to someone named Dylan
Please
Rogers.
do, the man said.
A little more Googling led
Have you
me
been
to
on this
discover
trail
that Dylan
before?
was recently found dead
No,
in his home.
first time, I answered.
No one knows who did it, and
Be
the
sure to
case
stick
is still
close and
ongoing.
conserve your energy.
The only lead
It is to be
have
a
is
long
that Dylan
walk.
was found holding a credit
The
card
man in the black
piece
robes
of paper
pointed
in his
towards
hand,
the desert,
but it was
too
too
covered
covered
in
in
blood to
and
make
the
out
sparse
anything on it.
foliage. This
It felt
information
so
rattled
surreal,
around in my
but
head
right.
as I drove home, like I had stepped
I had
into
no
the
idea
adventure
what to
I
do with
wanted.
it.
Do
Only,
I call the cops?
something kept throwing me off.
Hello, 911?
It was the silence from such
Yes.
a large group.
I keep getting pieces
When
of
we
paper
started
that
on the
say
path,
hello on them,
I didn't
except
hear
for one
anything
that
from
had
the
a name
people in
and
the
a
red
phone
robes
numbers that belonged to a dead
The
guy.
only one I had heard speak
Why,
up until
no,
that moment
I
was
haven't
the
had
one in the
anything to
black
drink.
robes.
Why do
He
you
would
ask?
speak to me every few minutes,
Yeah,
usually
that'd
to
go
point
great.
something out, but the
A part of
gaps
me
between
wanted to
those
call
moments
George
were
and
growing
tell him
larger.
about this, but I decided
Initially,
against it.
I thought he was a guide.
It had just looked
but it
like me
became
trying
clear
to
as
add
he
on to an
drifted
already
into the others
ridiculous
that he was
excuse.
just familiar with the trail.
I wasn't sure who to tell
I
about
was too
this.
shy to keep the conversation
My friends
going,
were all busy,
finding
and my
myself
family
just
enjoying
enjoying
the
the
sights.
after I came out.
The range of
I
colors
was basically
just
on my
incredible.
own.
I
So many
decided
people
I'd
think the
investigate
desert
this
is
more when I
just
got
muted,
home,
dry
maybe even
colors,
submit my
but there are
situation
just so
as
many
a chip
shades
in
of
the
light
Dylan
and
Rogers
dark.
case. The vibrant
I just
oranges
knew I had
when we
to do
found
something.
ourselves in a ravine were stunning.
After a very stressful drive,
we followed a stream
I
in that
finally got
shallow
home.
ravine until the trail
As
opened
soon as
into
I
the
walked
desert
inside,
again.
I noticed something
It was
felt
just in time
off.
to see the sun settle
I
beyond
turned
the
on the
horizon.
lights. The sky
Hello?
becomes like blood.
I called
The man
out.
in the black robes said
Anyone
behind me.
there?
Nothing.
I jumped, not at his voice,
Dead quiet.
but because I thought I was at
I
the back of
slowly
the
made
pack.
my way from my living room into
I
my
wanted to
kitchen.
keep everyone in view.
I could see Craig's
beautiful
silhouette
red,
lying on the floor of the
yes.
kitchen, probably
I turned to
sleeping.
look at him. As I
He
stepped
was
into
looking
the
at me.
kitchen, my foot slipped
I
on
could see his
something.
eyes, his pale
I
skin
grabbed a counter
through
for
the slit in the
balance.
robes.
What the hell
It
did
was
I
odd
slip
to look
on?
at because his hands were
I
dark.
know my floors were clean when I
Another
left.
cultural thing, maybe?
I turned on the kitchen
When I had
lights
finally
and discovered
registered
two
his
things.
words as a question,
First,
I stuttered in
Craig
response.
wasn't sleeping.
He was
yeah,
dead, I said, feeling
his
a
throat
chill
had
run
been
down my
brutally
spine.
sliced open. I took the
His
hoodie out
eyes
of my
were still
backpack
open,
and pulled it on.
stuck in abject terror.
Amazing how fast
Second,
the cold comes in two.
I know what I slipped in.
Yes,
Craig's
do you
blood.
think you can make the walk back?
The blood
He
itself
asked.
wasn't splattered randomly.
We should
on the
almost
floor.
be there. So,
No, it was
no,
used to write
no,
out a message
we
on
are
the
quite
floor.
far now, he corrected.
It was a simple message,
By night,
only being
the
one
journey
word,
back should
written
be
in
quicker.
large,
5
shaky,
hours seems
capital
about right.
letters. My heart
Hello.
sank. I thought we had taken some turns and were just about to see the start of the trail again over the hill. Yet, looking around, I should have been able to see that distant glow of Vegas. Instead, all I saw were dark, robed figures, shambling ever onward into the desert. My water had run out, my phone had long since died, and I was hungry. My panic was stiff at first, but I began to hear it in my voice. Then let's turn back, I said. You can go back, we are heading somewhere else, the man in black said. Is it close? Very, but you won't be able to join us, not as you are. He looked me up and down. I wondered if he was referring to my clothes and how I stood out amongst them, but something in those eyes showed a different kind of disgust. It was like my entire existence didn't fit in, not just my clothes. His tone was growing more serious and less friendly as well. He was losing patience. At that moment, I noticed a building noise. A rumbling, which I mistook for chatter amongst the men and women in red robes, but as it grew louder, it sounded more like an uncoordinated hum. Like they were all humming a song none of them knew the lyrics to. Again, too late, he murmured. As it should be, so it is. Too late? I repeated. Mind where you step, he told me. Once your weight is on your foot, your choice is made. The humming had reached a breaking point in the tone. The night sky became a lot darker, and the stars and moon vanished. The midnight blue became pitch black, a surreal void. It felt like something was blocking it out of sight because that same darkness seemed to move wherever I looked. Yet,
The desert remained illuminated by some strange source of light. I could see the red robes against the pitch black, and watch as they marched across the sands. I was overwhelmed by a sense of dread, a feeling of weakness. My whole body began to ache, and every effort seemed to strain my muscles and even my bones. I knew this feeling. The one bubbling inside of me. It was many years ago when I was a child. I was coughing in bed, constantly, day after day. That weakness kept me wondering how hollow I could get. I felt as weak and flimsy as a thin plastic bag. My heart, I could feel its every beat, as if all my insides were numb and only it soldiered on. I was waiting for it to give out. The people in the red robes began to shed their blood-red fabric. Naked forms that began to age and decay before my eyes. A space in the inky void ahead of them opened up, a shining white door, tall and thin. The way was clear and I didn't have it in me to walk on. I was terrified. "Why are you scared?" the man in the black robes asked. "What awaits you is an end to the pain. Keep walking strong." He placed his hand on my shoulder and guided me. The people ahead of me were growing more grotesque by the second. I had no idea what made our bodies, so I was made to watch them unmake themselves. The skin, the fat, the pus, the blood. The shades of red began to turn blue and green. My head was burning inside. I felt dehydrated. While my body was in a state of shock and fear, my mind was trying its best to grip reality, to steer me away. The man in the black robes seemed to sense it because he stopped walking and looked at me. With all my energy, I looked at him. "You cannot go back now," he told me. "Your life is with them, it is only natural to pass over to the next plane." I felt the heat of tears. It was just like those nights years ago. The very real fear of death. I am ashamed of it now, but I was not thinking of my loved ones, not even my family. I didn't think of all the wrong I did, the regrets I had. When I looked into that man's eyes, all I thought was, "Why now?" The man seemed to sigh, but I didn't hear the exhale. His shoulders slumped and the humming faded completely. The shambling corpses turned around to look back at me with their empty sockets. "The dead must be laid to rest," he said. "It is only natural. The earth will bind the body and free the spirit." The man in black grabbed both my shoulders, twisted me around, and began to lay me on the ground as if I weighed nothing. I couldn't move. I could only watch as he began to scoop the sand with his hands over me. I heard the rumbling again, but it sounded angry. I looked up, as far as I could with my neck arched. I could see the world upside down, the white arch, and the silhouettes of the dead against that divine light. The corpses were moving closer and they radiated malice. More tears and even a pathetic whimper. "Hush," the man in the black robe said. "They are not upon you yet." He was working fast, and only a few seconds later I could feel sand over every inch of my body. He finished by pouring the sand over my face, covering me completely. I heard the dead close in. I heard a muttering of words, then I heard his screams. I try not to imagine the pain one must feel to make those sounds. He was still alive, but his cries grew further away as they carried him towards the white arch. I could gather this much from what I heard. As his voice faded, the rumbling ceased and strength returned to my body. I could breathe, and I was breathing in sand. With a choking gasp, I sat up, coughing and spluttering. I noticed immediately the pink and purple hue of the sky. On my back, I felt the warmth of the morning sun. Looking all around, I saw nothing. No dead people, no man in black, no inky sky and white arch. All the evidence I had was the blood on the sand and it trailing off before stopping completely. Asterisk. I found a road and somebody to point me in the direction of Vegas, but they weren't willing to give me a lift back. Luckily, after an hour or two of walking, someone else. I watched as we drove past the road leading to the yellow building where the trail began. I think I even saw Dorothy talking to a group of tourists. When I arrived at the hotel, I dug my room key out of a sandy backpack and held it in front of the machine. It still worked, and a few seconds later, I was taking a shower, trying to let the hot water bring a little more warmth to my body. All the while, I thought about that man in the black robes. He wasn't a dead man, not like the others. He didn't seem evil, but he didn't seem sane either. No matter what conclusions I made about him, I realized that he saved my life and paid a price for it. A thought that snapped everything into place, and I cried in that shower as all the feelings rushed at me at once. I spoke about this experience with only one person, a priest. I don't think he believed a word I said, not truly. I think he thought I was talking about a dream, or more accurately, a nightmare. Yet, he showed enough concern to say something wise and biblical about sacrifice. It wasn't his words that convinced me to refine my faith. It was the thought of believing in nothing when something like that happened to me. It didn't sit right. That's what I gained for the price that someone else paid. I pray that it is enough.